You belong to your father, the devil. Welcome to day 8 of 21 days in the book of John that we're doing together. Today we're in John chapter 8 where it got heated. But you know what? The Pharisees, they followed Jesus around, waiting for him to mess up in any way that he could. They didn't like anything that he said. They didn't like anything that he did. They didn't like anywhere that he touched. Nothing. They just wanted him to be gone. They wanted him to shut up. But Jesus stands up to the Pharisees, and he comes back in verse 44. He says these words: you belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language. Wow. For he is a liar and the father of lies. Yet because I tell the truth, you don't believe me. Can any of you prove me guilty of sin if I am telling the truth? Why don't you believe me? And Jesus finishes it with this right here. Whoever belongs to God, here's what God says. The reason you do not hear is because you do not belong to God. Wow. That was an incredible a piece of communication there between Jesus and the Pharisees. But can we talk about it for just a minute? Because I think there's something there that might help us all today if we pay attention to not just Jesus, but also the Pharisees. See, the Pharisees for generations have built this church for a king. They knew that a Messiah was coming because of the Old Testament prophecies, hundreds of them, that said he was going to. But the problem is they were building the church for a king to fit their agenda. And Jesus shows up, the king, and the king did not fit their agenda. But instead, what the king wanted was a church to reflect the king of that church. But what the Pharisees wanted was a king that would reflect the church that they had built. But see, Jesus didn't do it, because Jesus shows up and he starts going to places that they do not dare go. He starts talking to people that they do not even touch. He begins to invite people to the table that they certainly didn't have in mind. You see, the king showed up and he was not about their agenda. He was not about their schedule. He was not about their way, their vibe, whatever it was. But that's what they were looking for, and that's why they were so mad. But see, I learned a lesson here because I've been guilty of building something and inviting God to be a part of it, but really wanting him just to be a part of my agenda, wanting him to do it on my schedule. But when Jesus invites us to the table, and thankfully he does, he doesn't invite us so that he'll be a reflection of us, but so that we'll be a reflection of him. You see, as a believer, I'm part of the kingdom of God, and the kingdom should always be a reflection of the king of that kingdom. And Jesus is that king. So we should be careful today. It is God inviting us to the table, and Jesus is the king of that table. It is not me inviting him to the table. And I and my life should only be a reflection of the one who's sitting at the head of that table, which is Jesus. Love you guys.